Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Helen Argeru, and I have the pleasure tonight of being joined by many interesting guests. One is Amber Lyonn, and tonight is Dr. Beth Bakkar. So we're going to have a very interesting conversation tonight about youth. This is actually the Women of Truth for Youth Summit. We are speaking with an expert every evening on very specific issues that the young people are facing. And tonight, Ann Lyons is going to be our expert, really sharing with us her passion for youth. She's done some incredible projects over the years, and she comes to us from the United States and really runs a young leaders club. She herself is a global leader and a Women Conference Awards host. And I've been really moved by her project, which she named Moving from Purpose. And I think this is such an important transformation that happens in many lives for many people at many different times in life. We are sitting in very compromised situations. We don't always know that we're going to be okay. And certainly for young people, this is very scary and very difficult to navigate. So this transition from painful experience into being able to find a purpose or to channel it somehow into a greater cause or a greater focus is a very important area for us to be exploring. And it's absolute pleasure, Amber, to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Are you hearing me well?
I'm hearing you really well. Do you hear me well?
Excellent. You look beautiful too.
You too, and I've been so looking forward to this because we've had some very nice LinkedIn posts going, a lot of response there, people really responding, to the idea that we want to really help young people right now and get a bit more intentional about how we can support future generations to look at the future with hope and with excitement, because we've certainly had a turbulent and challenging 2 years. And I think for young people, it's been particularly difficult. So what have you seen young people challenged by in the United States in the work that you've been doing? What do you think has been the most difficult challenge for them?
Well, first of all, let me please thank you for having me here to the Hellenique. Thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of this amazing global platform and panelists of experts and educators and ambassadors for our youth. That's one of my passions. And I've been working with youth for over 30 years. So I'm grateful to be able to, during such a trying time, to be able to help provide them with platforms and collaborative opportunities to be able to still have a voice. And that's one of the things that is a challenge for our youth today, being able to, for them to be able to have a voice. And with the World Women's Conference Award global organization, of which I am the global leader of young people all around the world, the program that we've developed for this year that I developed with them is called New Year, New You. Find your voice and your life's choice. So we want them to know that not only do they have a voice, but they have a choice. And it was so ironic yesterday, Dr. Shali.
Really, yes.
Yes, she talked about those two words, choice and voice. And that's what it's all about today. Young people want to know that they not only have a way to express themselves, but that they have a choice in what affects them and how life affects them and how things that happen affects them. And the thing about it is COVID-19, most of our choices has been taken away, but we've gained some of our control and our choices back, and how we've pivoted and been able to become resilient during the time of COVID-19. And that's something that our young people have felt pressured, dealing with mental anguish, dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression. I don't know if people really realize how much youth suffer with depression. And it's not something that they walk around and talk about. But if you tap in and begin to have conversations with them, healthy conversations with them, and not put blinders on, and we have to be able to open up our eyes and begin to notice the changes and some of the signs that they're speaking to us through in their behavior patterns, their circle of friends, becoming withdrawn, things like that. When you have a bright, bubbly child and all of a sudden they become withdrawn, they may be being bullied in school, they may be in a relationship that is not healthy, and they don't know how to express that and to say how they're being treated. And so a lot of these things have challenged our young people, just the mere fact of some of them not being able to be in school with their friends, not being able to go to graduation. This year, things have opened back up, but in 2020, my own son graduated from college. He graduated from Kennesaw State University in Kennesaw, Georgia, with his Bachelor of Arts in Theater and Performance Studies with a concentration in acting, and he was not able to walk across the stage. He was not able to go on his spring break trip. He was not able to do a lot of the things that he was preparing for post-college work. It was all shut down and taken away. That kind of stuff affected our young people. And many people were telling them that they didn't have a right to be upset, that they didn't have a right to have those feelings because people were dying, we're in a pandemic. But you cannot strip them from their feelings. Their feelings need to be validated. And then once they're validated, we can help them transition from that place of pain to a place of purpose. How do you take that pain and use it to a purpose that can be beneficial to yourself and to others? But if we don't acknowledge the fact that that's real, that what they went through, what they experienced is actually real and it affected them, and give them that platform to be able to speak about it and have a voice about it, they can't help themselves and they can't help anyone else. So their mental capacity was affected on many, many levels. And a lot of parents didn't know. A lot of parents have not seen. They were so caught up with their own challenges, being furloughed. I was furloughed for a couple of months, being put off your job. Some people lost their jobs. I was able to go back after a couple of months, but some people's jobs were gone, period. Loss of income, not being able to see your family, all of these things affected us as adults. So sometimes we're so caught up with what's going on in our world, we're not having that open dialogue. You're just telling your kid to get on virtual learning. And sometimes even families didn't even have enough, they didn't have Wi-Fi in some places in the world. Some people didn't even have more than one computer or laptop, and you have multiple children that need to use it. It's so much that affected and challenged our young people during this time of COVID-19. So we have to be able to not be ignorant concerning these things, but to be honest and to be, open about discussing them so that we can find solutions to be able to traverse through these places. And things have come along. We're a year and a half in, going on 2 years in now, and things have changed. But guess what? They went back into the school building. So you're back in school now. You're glad to be with your friends, and all of a sudden the school is shut down again. Why? Because someone has a confirmed case of COVID-19. So things are still happening. They're still being challenged in these areas. Some young people have had pre-existing conditions of mental health issues, and the school was their place of solace. They talked to the school nurse or the school counselor and the social worker, and they didn't have that anymore. So there's so many challenges that our young people have had to deal with. And the one way that we can begin to really help them through is through healthy communication and dialogue, giving them a voice and letting them know that they have a choice in what happens to them and in their lives.
Isn't that incredible, though, that we had those words resonating last night? There was you on the call as well. And then I did a post today about it. Very beautiful rhyming, very powerful way for us to remember two essential things. You said a few more essential things as well. And I want to go through them because it's profound to begin to talk about emotional validation as a young person. I, in fact, have a client standard on Wednesdays, and it was something we were looking at today, is how do you actually mirror back to a child, a teenager in this case, a 13-year-old who's become very, very withdrawn and, even had a moment of using the idea of not being around anymore as a response to his mother when he didn't get something or didn't manage to get a yes out of her later on, which, might infuriate a parent, but I think it's more cause for concern. So this behavior started during lockdown. And I think it, for me, was a really important reminder today about what you've just started mentioning, the aftermath of lockdown and the loss of opportunity, the loss of communication channels, the loss of emotional validation, wherever it is that you might have been getting it, maybe from friends, maybe from teachers, maybe just from being able to disconnect from all the things back home that maybe you don't like or don't want to face.
Yes.
And not having opportunity for all this has caused a lot of distress for young people and mental anguish. Love those words you put to it. So let's see if we can help parents and educators right now navigate through some of this, because I think from what you're sharing with us, Amber, it's very clear that you understand how to help young people transition from the pain into channeling the pain into some kind of meaningful purpose. So if we were to just mirror really quickly one way that you could speak to a child that validates their feeling, maybe we could just model that for parents and educators. What do we mean by this? So let's say the child is feeling really even rebellious, to the point of being rebellious, doesn't want to do anything at home, but they're just annoyed or they're frustrated. And you're seeing the frustration come out either in a rebellious way or not wanting to engage with you kind of way. Or maybe they do say, I'm really don't want to go to school today because I don't want to, see all those people that, during lockdown, they didn't send me any messages, for example. Let's say there's a disclosure like that. And the parent wants to say, you shouldn't be worrying about that because there's so many more important problems in the world, like me, who, whatever, has to go to work and, don't have the same boss that whatever the response is to that behavior from a parent mind. If we were really thinking about the child's need to have that emotion validated, what kind of response would we be able to give that child that demonstrates, I'm hearing you, it matters that you feel this way, and it's okay that you feel this way. You're allowed to feel what you're allowed to feel. Because a lot of parents and educators don't really know how to do this. So can you give us an example? Because I'm also
one of the
open
things
to discussing a bit more, how do we really support the emotional process?
One of the things that I would say is talk to them and not at them.
Right.
Because we have a habit of talking at them and telling them what we have a habit of superimposing our thought processes onto them. That's not what's going to help. What you need to do is first be able to open up a dialogue by letting them know that you care. So you have to be able to, if you never, ever have this type of dialogue and they come out the clear blue sky, they're going to be like, they're not going to be open to talking to you. So you have to create that safe space for them and be able to validate them and let them know that this is about their feelings. You have to remove yourself, remove your ideologies, remove everything that you think is real for you, and then almost put yourself in that child's place and be able to tap into what it is that they are feeling and how it is that, let them know that you're there for them and that it's not anything that they've done wrong, that they're not in any kind of trouble, even if they have been acting out. We have to still be able to provide a safe space and let them know, okay, so this is not what we want you to do. How can we correct this behavior? How can you express yourself and your emotions, which are valid? in a better way, and begin to explore those opportunities with them. Sometimes one of the things, our youth program is healing pain through the arts. The youth love the arts. So you have to sometimes, before you even start talk about something that they enjoy, before you even get into the deep things. One of the things I learned in corporate leadership is, if you have to discipline someone, you don't just come in and say, bam, you in trouble. You have to open up the opportunity for a dialogue to be able to say, you might have to say, how's your day been going? How's the family? How's everything? You have to create that space so that they can feel safe enough to share with you what it is they're going through. So open up the dialogue, remove yourself and your ideologies from the situation. Yes, you're going to counsel them. Yes, you're going to give them guidance, but you have to first give them the space to be able to open up so that you can then bring that help in for them. So don't talk to them. Don't talk at them, talk to them. Watch your tone. So you can't come in, unfortunately, there are parents who do use words that are a little bit more harsh and not nice words to use towards their children. That's not the time to be doing that. You want to remove that vocabulary from this discussion. Anything that is going to cause them to feel negative, you have to remove that from your language. So you need to check your tone, check your language, tap into what it is they enjoy. If there's a new song out that they enjoy and that that they've been playing, talk about that in the beginning. Find a way, if they like art, if they like basketball, did you see that game? You have to create take away the boundaries that they're going to set up if they're not used to you having these type of dialogues. And this is a reteaching that many parents need, because we have always come from the school, be seen and not heard, stay in a child's place. And that has its place, but we have to be able to open up ourselves to understand we're losing our generation of young people. And if we do not find the keys and the tools and the resources to be able to rebuild that generational divide that has taken place, we will lose them forever. The language is totally different. Like, they think we're archaic. So you're gonna have to don't try to talk like them, because they don't like, they'd be like, you're so corny, but, and also try to bring a lightheartedness to a heavy situation.
Yeah.
We come in with guns blazing and expect them to be a recipient of what we're saying. We have to temper our hearts. We have to check all of our stuff at the door and understand this ain't about us. This is about saving this young person.
Yeah, I'm going to go through these points, really important. So talk to your child, talk with your child, not at your child. Very important to begin to change that dynamic, that it's not about your power imposing something onto them. You want to create this negotiated relationship with them that's going to be equal in this particular moment. It's very important. You mentioned something great about talking about something that they enjoy. So find something they really enjoy, something that's meaningful for them, and start with that to create the rapport, the warmth, before you start to actually go into any deep issue, because the whole point here is to open a dialogue, right? Yes. You want to open a dialogue and create a safe space. And you want to remove yourself. It's not about you, what you think, what you want, what you think is good for them. I mean, so many adults are so wrapped up in what they think, what they want, their opinions. This is what young people reject continuously. They're exhausted from all the things that we think about them. So remove yourself from that conversation. And as you keep this conversation going, you need to be checking your tone. And then, very important, I love this, such an important point, is to actually look how you can use the arts or a creative process in building this kind of level of communication. There's in fact some great science about the brain that changes into alpha when we get into this nature space or creative space. So this is a very, very powerful list. I'm going to put it up on the live stream so that anyone watching can get some benefit from this. And I want to thank you very much, Amber. I'm going to open up a little dialogue with Dr. Beth Bakkar, who's actually also working extensively with youth, and I would love to hear what the two of you will come up with in this conversation, because one thing I thought we could go into, Dr. Beth, if you're there and you can switch on your video, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah.
And if we have a quick check at the chat, you'll see that Lakeisha is saying some really nice things about the conversation, really enjoying the interaction here. And she's saying how it's important to create that space for the young person to feel comfortable. I mean, that is the point. We're not really looking to solve all these problems at once. We're looking to create a way for a younger person to feel more trust, to share what's deeper in their hearts. And that's a very hard thing to do. There's so many of us adults that still struggle to be vulnerable. So trusting someone with your vulnerability is very, very important in educating a child how to be with their emotions. So I want to really encourage you to practice this. If you're a parent and you haven't been building a safe space for your child to open up, I want you to begin to practice it. And even ask your friends to help you. Ask people their advice. How are they doing it? How are they connecting with their kids? It's time for us all to learn to go to this next level. Yes. So until Dr. Beth switches on, let's come back to these important questions about the transition into a new life. You said something about your son, Amber, and it was really interesting because many kids, great, Dr. Beth is here too. So I'm going to start with Amber. Many kids have struggled through this time by missing out on great opportunities to make closure, to make a completion, like the one we just mentioned of, children really being in this struggle point of seeing the end of their career, the end of a chapter, and not being able to commemorate or celebrate it. So it's almost like there's no closure. So any ideas on how we can help young people recreate or reinvent perhaps even this missed opportunity? What happened with your son? He didn't get to the graduation in person. And was there any thoughts that came about how we could help them catch up on missed opportunities or transition into this new life in some different way?
What we did with him was we did a virtual celebratory toast, and we invited family and friends to come in and to via Zoom. And we it was like a last minute thing because I didn't see him during the whole time during the shutdown. He was away at college, and he just was swamped with so much work. You would think the professors would have taken it light when they went on virtual, but they they packed on the work in his last semester of his senior year. So I didn't get to see him until after. So when he finally did come home, it was right after he turned in his last assignment, his last paper for his graduation requirements. And then he was like, okay, yes, you can go ahead and do the virtual, because he wasn't into all of that virtual stuff, but celebrations and drive-by graduation celebrate. He wasn't into all that, but he let me do it. And it was a blessing. And people really blessed him, even financially, beautifully, because, people knew that you weren't able to see them. You weren't able to go. Family couldn't come in from out of town. So we did that. And a lot of people started doing drive-by graduation. It wasn't a graduation, it was like a drive-by celebration. You would drive by the person's home, give them big signs and cards and things like, just to do something to commemorate that time and in that space. So that became a big thing that people began to do. So now this year, they begin to let the people from last year come to this year's graduation. But my son didn't want to do that. He's a little different. He didn't want to do that. And so, it would have been something that we would have liked, because we would have seen him across the stage, but he was like, the moment was gone. So he didn't want to do that. So every child is different, and you're going to have to appreciate them for who they are. It was his decision, and it is what it is. We celebrated him in the time that it happened, although it was bittersweet, because you work 4 years, you want to see your child walk across that stage to get their degree, to get their diploma, to go to the prom, all of that stuff. So that's some of the things that people begin to do. They begin to do virtual because that's what it was. Now people are able to celebrate a little bit more in person because things are becoming back. More in-person events are starting to take place. So that's how we celebrated.
Yeah. Very important. Anyone watching, if you saw your child go through one of these milestones, we call them milestones for a reason. They're very significant in repositioning us for a different future. So there's something that changes fundamentally at that time. If you saw your child go through a milestone in the last 2 years and they didn't mark it in some specific way, perhaps you can think about something like what we just heard, maybe a virtual gathering where the family and friends come together and you set it up. You encourage that to happen so that you can have a ceremonial space for your child's milestone, and encourage them to also know that it's important enough to do that, because it may not seem like it at the time, or it might feel very displaced or dislocated to do it. But actually, like you've just shared with us, Amber, it's a very significant time to have yourself feel this very important primal need, which is a sense of significance. So there are 4 primal needs. We talk about these in many different contexts. We need to feel loved and connected. We need to feel significant. We need to feel secure, and we need the things to change in life.
Yes.
We sometimes, compete with ourselves to get these different needs met. Like they can sometimes be in conflict with each other. So it's difficult enough as it is to meet these needs. So if a child has a moment that's been very significant and it hasn't been acknowledged, I think you can all appreciate that at some point it's going to become a memory of not feeling significance. So this is why I think it's important that you make an effort to actually compensate in some way, make it a bit of a creative solution, do it with whatever you have, even if it's a small little gathering of 4 or 5 people, closest friends, where you all, support the child to have a sense of completion or congratulations for what's happened. And we move with a bit of flow now to Dr. Beth Bakkar. You're joining us with your video on, I can see. Thank you so much for coming on. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have the 2 of you here now together to converse a little bit for 5-10 minutes. We're going to do a bit of a panel discussion, and then I'll come back to you, Dr. Beth, and go deeper in. What do you think from a totally different part of the world right now? I believe you're in Australia, am I right? Yeah. And working at university in the kind of educational, tertiary education sector. I mean, they went through huge transitions. We had summits while lockdowns were happening. So we heard a lot about how education was changing before our eyes onto these virtual platforms. But I think the bigger question now is this transition into a new life. What are you seeing with students, and what do you think parents and educators need to become a bit more aware of as children start to go back to normal or create a new kind of normal? What are you seeing they need some help with?
Good afternoon, good evening, first of all, and thank you for having me on. I'm really excited. Most of the conversation, the discourse that now just took place, it resonates, I think, globally, and it resonated with me on a lot of levels. I actually did a paper on this recently, and at the moment, I am in Beirut at the moment. So because I'm in between projects, so I can definitely tell you from this part of the world, it didn't go too well with most students. I agree with Amber. It takes a lot from the carers or the parents' point of view or perspective to actually validate the existence of their child, and I didn't see this happening much. Also because it was so new to the education sector, looking at it from the perspective of universities or schools, what we saw is that many teachers and they were trying to come to terms with how to navigate the whole process of teaching online, and they too were rushed into it. So also not taking anything away from their hard work, but at the beginning there was a lot of disarray and from all perspectives. I agree that there needs to be students' empowerment, encouragement to actually use their voice, and I'm going to be touching on this now later on with regards to their identity. what we saw through the study is that most students' identity was not acknowledged. Their needs were not acknowledged. It was just, let's get on with it. And there were a lot of obstacles to overcome. And my true belief is that many students, especially students that were falling behind because of their learning, or because a member of the family died, or because they were disadvantaged financially, or because they had learning needs, or because they were hit with COVID. There were many layers to the to 2019, 2020. I believe many students actually lost a year in their studies. And how do we get, for example, lower primary school students back into the system? They lost 2 years, or basically very important years, learning how to read and how to count. And they're 7 or 8 now, they have to start from the beginning. Or students that were basically had emotional or family issues. Also, how do we get them back into the system? I think we are going to see the effect of COVID-19 5 to 10 years down the track. There will be many studies conducted on this, and most of what Amber stated, I definitely agree with. I as an educator, I can tell you that I also had COVID while I was teaching online, and my patience was quite thin. And I myself was trying to also help students navigate all the tools too online. And it was, from my perspective, it was really daunting. It was overwhelming. And I can imagine what the students had to go through. I agree with Amber totally. Many had to share. A lot of disadvantages took place. And I'm glad that now we're back into somewhat, we're normalizing this now somewhat. And we know what we are navigating through at the moment. Even if they told us, look, there's another shutdown or, whatever, we know exactly what to expect, but still, I don't know how we're going to overcome or assist a large cohort of students that actually were affected negatively, not positively, and they were not supported by their parents. Not many parents know how to create a conversation with their children. Not many
hearing hearing you speak is very moving. I know we're going to be losing Amber Lyons very soon because you need to go back to work. Am I right, Amber?
Yes.
It sounds like a really sobering reality that you got to go back to work, but everybody listening, work is still calling. In some time zones, work is in fact getting missed having this conversation. So Amber, it's been amazing having you. Any last comment you'd like to make about the transition into a new life, the transition into purpose from pain for young people, and then we close it off and let you go back to work?
Yes, one of the things that I wanted to share is that although, Beth, I definitely agree with you so much, because I have many friends who are educators in the educational system, and they are so concerned about the well-being of the students, because it's like like you said, they lost everything. A lot of students. But I want you to know that in my organization, Healing Pain Through the Arts, well, From Pain to Purpose Incorporated, our youth program, Healing Pain Through the Arts, we just had last Saturday, our Healing Pain Through the Arts Youth Spotlight Awards 2021. We honored our young people who have remained resilient during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we honored 11 young people. This is the first time that we honored 2 young ladies who actually had passed away. And we wanted to keep their legacy alive. And the rest of them were there in that space and were able to receive their awards. We had a wonderful time. So some of our young people are moving forward. They are doing the work. They are trying to put their best foot forward. So I just want to say, as a community, one of my focuses and visions is is to continue to help rebuild the village. It takes a village of support to be able, we have to read that African proverb rings so true more today than ever before. It takes a village to raise a child, and we've become so divided. COVID-19 has not helped. It's separated us even the more. We have to get out of that one-track mentality of it's just about me, my own, and me getting to the top. And we've got to come back together as a united community nationally. And God is opening up doors for us to be able to collaborate globally and help one another to come through with more success and raise up great young leaders who are going to affect our not only tomorrow, but our today. I talk about our youth as our. They are outstanding, they are unique, and they are refined, and it takes a village. And support is what we need. Together, we are better. So let's continue to rally around our youth and raise up a village that will support them, that will, yes, build that bridge of that generational divide that has been destroyed. They don't trust us. We don't trust them. No, we need each other, and we have to be able to just come together and be able to rally around them as adults and as elders. And the respect level from the youth has to be there for the elders, and the elders have to be able to listen to our youth so that we can be able to move forward in a positive manner, because that's what it's all about. That's my time for today. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Seconding that, really echoing and coming into this community-based thinking is really important for us to begin to support building this bridge. I mean, we don't have a bridge into the future built. We have to build it every single day, and altogether we can do that brick by brick. And of course, it is summits like this and so many other amazing projects that have been happening during COVID. People have bonded globally, and we've created this emotional intelligence that we just simply didn't have before. Yes. And we need to start building on what we see has been growing. Thank you, Amber. It's been an honor to have you, and we will love to see you again at Women of Truth. We'll find the ways. And now to Beth Bakkar for her very important contributions on the reshaping of education. We know that there is a need for educational reform. I mean, there have been people speaking about it for such a long time. Sir Ken Robinson has spoken about the importance of the creative process in learning and development for children. And of course, at the older age group, we see now such a strong need for innovation and creative thinking, critical thinking, because we have devices, technology, sort of flattening the curve, as it were, sort of making us all a little bit digitally the same. And so the need to be able to be an individual is growing at the same time, which is such an interesting paradox. And I think I want to pose to you this question then about what we see from this last 2-year stretch as a definite indicator of certain things in the educational system that need to shift or need to reform. You, as someone that's worked in that sector, can certainly tell us a few things. Maybe we can just choose 3.
I can, first of all, the curriculum on all levels needs to shift, it needs to change. If you were to discuss our current curriculum with someone from the early 20th century, it's basically the same. Nothing has changed. It still dictates a lot of the knowledge and ideologies, and we limit students from growing. And it's not skill-based. The curriculum is not skill-based, even though we do discuss analytical thinking and emotional intelligence and so forth. But I always say to my teachers, if you have 20 to 25 odd students in the classroom, how many minutes of the 45-minute hour or 50-minute hour can you actually allocate to discuss and discover whether or not the students have identified with the lesson and were able to analyze, and what skills have they taught, have they learned? So I basically can tell you this. Another thing is that we don't identify skills that students need for the 21st century. We seem to have lost the course there, the path. I don't know what happened. It's just that we seem to be, the curriculum seems to be teaching students things that someone wanted, whoever put the curriculum together, someone wanted the students just to know specific skills and that's it, not to go above or beyond. And what we're discovering is that students need to be able to, at a very young age, it's no longer at a teenage years, at a very young age, to be able to analyze and identify their surroundings, their space. Due to social media has changed the discourse altogether with regards to the curriculum. I think we should have an elective whereby we teach students how to navigate the truth and how to basically tune out and how to choose what they want from social media and every other social tools out there. This is something of the future. It's out there that the future only needs specific skills, and my understanding is that what do we do with the rest of the population that have desire or a niche to learn, for example, to graduate in specific areas. So if everything has to be with regards to IT, what happens to everything else? And what we learned the past 1.5 years is that the health sector is extremely beneficial, and with regards to psychology, with regards to social work, with regards to nursing, with regards, there are certain soft skills that you can't take away. And there are other skills that we need in order to survive. And the curriculum does not substantiate any of this. And I think that we need to readdress the curriculum on a global level. And because of globalization, people are traveling back and forth, and it's no longer narrowed down to a specific place or a specific country, the curriculum. So if you were to employ me, for example, I'm sure you will be looking at particular skills that I need to have and is in par with the rest of the people that actually applied for the same job. So there are a lot of things that need to be discussed.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces. So important that you mentioned these three things, because I think they're paramount. The first one, the whole curriculum itself. I mean, there's all these people talking about how it was built for the Industrial Revolution, still is, and that we still, keeping alive this kind of survival mentality that was based in another century. Really, so much has changed, especially even just technology. It's taken us into a totally different space. So really reworking the curriculum. I hope there are people beginning to do this. I really don't know if they're doing it quick enough, but I hope they're working on it, because sometimes it looks like it's changing, but piece by piece. And I can appreciate it's complex to change curriculum. You have to change a lot of systems that keep running together. The second thing was this very important thing you mentioned about analytical thinking. And it's certainly something we see affecting the third point you mentioned, which is the skills for the 21st century, which have something to do with discernment and selectivity. And I'll definitely say, as a psychologist, it's such an important point, because nowadays, as we can see, there's as much push in developing more emotional intelligence as there is in forces stopping us from being emotionally honest or emotionally truthful or emotionally mature. So there's almost like a kind of push and pull dynamic here. And the problem with that is that if you're not emotionally maturing, it's very possible to be led astray, to be very suggestible, meaning that you will just go along with what other people want from you. And as a young person, it's almost missing as a message that you need to learn to be selective. And I don't think young people understand that. Certainly not a lot of parents understand it as well. Adults, the discernment it takes to live a healthy life and make healthy choices when you are filled with so much choice is way more complicated than we ever estimated. And I think this is, from some TED talk I saw with a psychologist talking about the fact that nowadays you go into a shop and you have 8 different kinds of Levi jeans, if you have the money to buy Levi even. So you see there's 8 different cuts at least. And the psychological impact of that is that it's much harder to choose. So this is a very important point, because if we're going to get
highlight also that what we're seeing is that a lot of parents are giving iPads or electronic gadgets to their children for the sake, because they're too easy to bring up. Young children. So children are not really socializing. and they don't know how to give and take with the inner community that they're within. And what we're finding is that a lot of issues, discipline issues also. And what I find is that many parents, they throw this on to the teachers to discipline their children. And this is something else also that we need to address also. We have a large group of very young children coming into schools in their first year, second year, or third year with anti-social skills. And we're seeing this because all they do is spend 5 hours, if not more, behind the electronical gadgets, whether it be the iPad or computer or games, whatever have you. And that's something else that we need to
definitely.
Yeah.
It's something I also can confirm and have seen it having a very specific effect on communication. And we know that making your needs understood is probably the most difficult part of living as a human being. And a lot of us will become manipulative or controlling or distort the truth if we can't get that done. And that's what happens if we don't develop the way to communicate more effectively. So social skills, learning how to socialize, learning how to be in social settings without feeling a sense of anxiety is a big challenge for a lot of kids, a lot of adults even. So I'm encouraging you, if you're listening as a parent or as an educator, to actually rethink how you're going to make the boundaries around devices very clear and in agreement in your family, and how you're going to keep that consistent, even when your child is arguing with you for another half an hour or another hour, or runs into their room, slams the door, says they hate you because you won't buy them an iPad. How can you navigate these challenges with technology and devices? At the same time, last night we heard that there's such an amazing way to reframe how we look at young people, that they are a generation that are going to grow up with very different types of social and interactive skills. And in many ways, we need to be mindful of being open-minded enough to see that they are looking at being the kind of people of the future that will have a life-work blend as opposed to a life-work balance like we're all trying to do now. That means the world of social media and real life are kind of mixing in for young people a little bit more than we think is right as adults and parents, and that we ever went through as previous generations. Now, that being as it is, we have to be a stand, I think, for the fact that that blending of reality and social media is, on the one hand, very interesting as a way of beginning to understand reality and the creation of reality as something that happens outside there, but also over here. I don't want to get too much into it, but it's a whole nother way of understanding how you construct reality. But at the same time, this responsibility to know the difference is also important. So when we talk about skills for the 21st century, being selective, being discerning about what page you're going to be on and how long you spend there and how long your your screen time is, and what that looks like when you have homework to do, are ways of thinking that parents are responsible to begin to teach their children. Because quite frankly, I don't think an educator is ever going to be able to get that far at school. So I think Dr. Beth's points here are very important. Looking at the curriculum again, analytical thinking and skills for the 21st century. Go ahead, Dr. Beth. Sorry,
I was going to say that it's also new to the parents. Everything that you've just discussed and all the awareness that needs to be done from the parents' perspective, it's new to them. And how do they go about learning how to address these issues with their children? How do they set these boundaries when they themselves are spending most of their days outside working, trying to make a living, and when they do come home, they themselves are overwhelmed. There are a lot of issues to unpack and to address. And even if we did, like, I know many parents, I tell that you have to set boundaries, you have to create limits, decide on what time they can use the iPad. But what happened during COVID-19, it changed the whole perspective. Like if
Picture,
a child, exactly, a child who has been sitting for a year and a half for 5 hours, how will you now take him away from this? This is quite difficult. And I think schools should also open up a platform where parents can come in and learn how to
I agree.
address these issues and work with teachers so that there is no overlap.
Yeah, and that there has to be some consensus. And the challenge is great. I don't want to minimize it. Being a parent nowadays is a big challenge. And it's also fair to say that that's a challenge worth taking on. If you choose to be a parent, you see the value of it, you see that there's great reward. But yes, it's going to be dark and difficult at times, and it's going to be really challenging. But that doesn't mean you don't have what it takes to meet the challenge or that you can't learn. I mean, we all have to, I think, step into this new possibility that we can learn and grow through greatly challenging times. And that's the growth mindset. There are 4 steps to learn in order to really master that mind state. And I'll be telling people on these calls how we can learn that together in an online space. If you feel like you need this kind of support to really get your head around how are you going to face these future challenges with your children, your family, and build harmony in the home space, there are things that you can do. Even today, we're saying that, meeting a challenge by knowing it's not going to be easy is a very good way to prepare yourself, because it's not easy. And yes, we need to educate ourselves. There are very specific needs that children have nowadays that we have to learn how to navigate. I think as parents, educators, and adults, that we have a responsibility to take what we've learned from the little bit of technology that we've been exposed to. We can see how it's changed our world. So we have a point of reference for how we're going to support kids when they're going to have more tech. The other thing that's really important is to just respect that young people are in a very different space about all of these things. And as much as they need guidance, they also need these boundaries, because there's 2 things we know children absolutely need is freedom and control. So, and the control is for the sense of safety, and the freedom is for the sense of change. So what we just spoke about, those 4 needs. And the reason I go over it again here is because even though it's very difficult to change the habits that have developed over the last 2 years, it's actually necessary, because the environment has changed. We don't have the same kind of uncertainty and stress we had even a year ago. We have some new facts, and we've all, I think, been moving. It's been quite a privilege to stand at the greatest crisis and the greatest opportunity of a lifetime, which was the pandemic opened up a lot of opportunity for a lot of things that were not available before. And because we lost so much in terms of certainty, we didn't always see that. But people have connected, families have come together in new ways. People have seen this level of self-reliance increase tremendously. We've had to wake up to things that we were sleeping to before. Many people have started going online that didn't know how to, and they've managed to create other kinds of relationships. And at the same time, there's been a shadow as well. We've had to grieve a lot of people that have left. We've had, change to the whole educational sector. We've had to realize our health system isn't that great at times. And yes, at other times, it's really helped a lot of people survive. So the point is to expect just a little bit more from ourselves. If we have the right support, we can do it. There are things that are going to have to change. Children cannot be on devices for 5 hours every single day anymore. If they've been in that state and parents now see they've lost the game a little, it's time to pull it back. Well, things have changed. That's your answer. Well, things have changed. No, you can't be on there 5 hours. Doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 3 months. This kind of hard line at times is very important, because it sets the tone for children to know that there are limits, there are boundaries. And unless they learn that about their own physical bodies, your body has a limit. Your body has a boundary. You can't end up allowing yourself to go deeper and deeper and deeper into a depression and not ask for help. You have to learn how to become responsible for your mental health, for your emotional well-being, for the things you want to accomplish in life. Yes, it's got to be hard. Yes, you need the support, but we have to model that to children, especially so that they can make some very difficult choices about where to put their attention, who to follow online, what kind of information is dangerous, what kind of things do I need to protect myself from. These are all very important skills to live in the jungle, whether the jungle is online or in real space. So I'm a stand for all of you that are out there saying that, you know, you just don't know what to do with your kids, or it's, you know, it's a lost cause, or how do we fix it now? All the demoralized feelings you might be having. I want you to know I understand. I'm with you. I'm in your corner. And I'm also saying we must find a way. We will find a way together. We must dig even deeper, because perhaps this is exactly the kind of challenge we all need to really build new ways of relating to children, new ways of looking at the future ourselves, new ways of trying to understand our youth, and to see how they have to mobilize skills and resources in themselves that we never did. And we had to do the same in comparison to our parents. So it's also just part of the developmental curve. And as we come to a close with your expertise, Dr. Beth, what would you say? You've given some really, really great confirming points here about, you know, the concern about socializing, very important. Children need to be learning how to socialize. Digital and technology-based systems can be deterring that, and you need to be checking that out in your family. We need to be thinking about how to, you know, encourage some critical thinking in children, analytical thinking. How do you actually get children to begin to make some choices about where they want to put their energy, where not? Things like this are very important, together with taking that responsibility as a parent to do more of that work and not just expecting the educator to fix that problem. So if we go forward now, looking into the future, and in terms of employment, job creation, kind of internships, mentoring for young people, what kind of resources can you point out to our audiences if they are looking for a little bit of help on how to get their kids a little bit more ready for the careers they might be finding ahead of them? Any tips or resources for us?
Yeah, we tend to encourage an open day where there's a career day, but if parents are eager, it's always, what I've discovered lately is that parents want their children to be something and the child wants to be something else. And youth today, unlike before, they don't want to be what their parents want them to be. So what I encourage is that parents allow your child to have a voice, allow them to grow within their own skin, and try to see what they like, what thing, encourage them to follow that their passion, because eventually they'll end up doing what I've seen, the degree, and then going back and, you know, pursuing their passion. And what I've seen in my time anyway, that when parents encourage their child to follow a particular path, there's a bit of there comes an estrangement between both parties. And I advise parents, if your child has a passion and is strong in particular skills, help them grow that particular skill during high school. Get them to do electives or short courses or after school activities where they can grow this particular skill, and eventually they can find, before going to uni, whether or not they are good at this particular skill, or whether or not they have the passion and the stamina to continue studying 3, 4, 5 or 6 years down the track. So my advice is not to the parents to create a safe space where they encourage discussion between them and the child, and their child learn to listen. And if the child asks for your opinion, what I tend to do, create an open-ended question where, what do you think? Why do you think you want to do this particular course? When did you discover that you like this particular course or this particular path you want to pursue in your career? And get the child to listen to themselves. And if they can't, get them to do a list of pros and cons. But resources, there are a lot of resources out there, but first and foremost, discuss with the school's career guide or officer. There's always an open day, and there are a lot of opportunities online where you can look at the courses and the descriptors and the syllabus, and the child can see whether or not they see themselves doing this particular course. But I truly advise parents to step back, take a breather, have the child decide on what path they want to take and pursue. And if it's going to be, I don't believe in mistakes. I believe in journeys. And if 2 years down the track they decide that this is not the path I want to pursue, it's not a loss. They would have grown. They would have learned a lot of skills, and they can carry these skills into another path.
Absolutely. And let's face it, life is full of change, twists and turns. This idea that something lasts forever, or that's it for you, doesn't really exist anymore. Career changes are becoming way more common than they ever were, and even advised, so that you become a much more developed person in different areas.
Helen, if you ask most students or most the teenagers, they say they want to become influencers or IT tech. So everybody wants to become an influencer these days, or just have a startup business. Out of the 20-odd youth or children or students that I ask, most of them say, oh, I want to become an influencer. I want to become a millionaire within the first 2 years. It is the people that they look up to on social media. I think it changed the whole...
changed the game, for sure.
Exactly. And it's hard out there, but they don't see it. They think that they can really make it within a year or two and become millionaires.
There's some very deep... commentary on the gaps that young people are not managing to fill in their development. And it certainly points to this comment from Felicia, who says it's pretty scary when you see a child sort of mixing reality with real life, and what kind of adults will they become. And absolutely, I think it's an important point that we need to think more carefully about how we help children keep that boundary between the reality of what's happening and the virtual world. And it's quite a difficult thing, because their wish is to blend these things. And yes, in some way there can be a healthy way to blend them, but you do have to have a strong identity to do that. And until you do, so that means 8 years old is the starting point, and it's only closing at like 25 years of age. So as a teenager, you're still trying to figure out who you really are and how to put your energy in your body. So we do need to be a little bit more facilitators in this, and to take that role seriously, because they will need some help to keep that line pretty clear. You said something great about really helping children to grow. So looking at what are they passionate about, encouraging them to develop that passion throughout their lives, to actually take some online courses, to learn the skill at high school, to maybe go and try out somewhere, to meet someone in that profession. You really want to open up channels so that it becomes more real and more practical and much more felt experience for a child to begin to go down a pathway. Don't just assume that if they go and study at university, it's all going to be great and they'll love it because they said they liked it. You need to test that out with them. And this is an important conversation to be having. So creating that safe space that we talked about, you echo it again here, Dr. Beth, saying how important it is to discuss with your child, to help them be in communication about what they like, what they think they're good at, what do they think they'd like to do for a long time, and to ask a lot of questions. I love that part of what you shared, like really presenting the idea to children that they have a right to discuss and explore in conversation, in their minds, in their thinking, the way the world will work for them, how they will build a life. I want to thank you, all my guests who came on tonight, Amber, Lyonn, and you, Dr. Beth Bakkar. Tomorrow I'm joined by Nancy Juneja. Dr. Nancy is in fact co-founder with Dr. Jindal, Munish Jindal, who comes on Thursday, for Mentor X. They are true change agents working out of India to really support lots of young people on their journey to innovation and startup culture. They also mentor and support young people to develop ingenuity. And this is a very exciting conversation for us for the next 2 days. We're going to be looking at exactly those points: innovation, out the box thinking, creativity, genius, protege type children, children that are beyond the expectations that even adults have. And what does that show us about the growing capacity of young people? How can we get behind and support this power that the youth actually have? As challenged as they are carrying a new kind of rhythm, a new perception, a new felt knowing about a world that will be a world where they can have a voice and a choice, freedom and control, but a place where they are independent, where what they do really matters, that what they do has meaning, and they're going to be expecting a few things different to previous generations, as we've seen already, and will need to face some challenges that teach them how to get that. I think very important also, you said this reality of young people looking to influence. We have to, as adults and educators, help them understand the gap between where you are now and having power. There's a gap, and that gap means you have to do something of meaning.
We have to change
you have
the
to
curriculum.
go deeper.
We have to change the curriculum, and I think this should be addressed in the curriculum.
Right, so we're going to leave that job to you, Dr. Beth. You and all your friends out there, please change the curriculums.
I don't think they're going to
let us know when you've done that. To all the lovely ladies that came on this call today, it's been lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. We love having you around. So that's to Felicia, to Lakeisha, and to all the people on the live stream that are here watching or watch this video later on. We did this for you. This is in service to you, the community. Women of Truth for Youth coming online together with some extra guests who are experts on youth issues, talking to you about the future generations, how to look at that silver lining. We'll be joined again tomorrow and the next few days by the beautiful musical genius of Savi Kabu. I'll be sharing some of her songs with you, as well as a video message from the Women of Truth for Youth health expert panel. Dr. Beth, thank you so much for being here. And to all my guests again, thanks once more for being with us. Good night, everybody, and have a very beautiful evening.